Well, hi, folks, and welcome to another one of our student interviews. I'm very excited to be talking with Mr. Jim Ridley today. I'll let him give you a little bit of an overview on where he's at and where he's from, but he's been a long-term member of the NPE community and added a ton of value, as well as obviously adding value to his business, which he will explain as well. So tell us a little bit about you, Jim, where you're based, what business model do you have, and who are the types of target market and clients that you serve?
Yeah, so, Jim Ridley I am, and we're in Armidale, northern New South Wales. Been running now, we're into our 10th year, so I'll be 10 years in business in October, so only about 6 months away. And have grown out of a little travelling personal training business to the business model that we have now, which is a CrossFit facility. So we're a CrossFit box with sort of anywhere most months between 100 and 110 members. Most of those members are pretty much what our target market is, and that's working families, people who are sort of 35 to 45. We've got a couple of kids usually, or one or two kids, and at one point in their life they were quite fit and healthy and that, and then life got in the road and they all woke up one morning and went, oh, hang on, I've been drinking too many beers and having too many great weekends, which have extended into being great weeks. And I'm not the fit young 18-year-old I once was. And so then, it's a pretty family-oriented sort of facility. We're like most CrossFit facilities in that we probably don't have a bunch of athletes, which everyone thinks most CrossFit boxes do. We just have a bunch of mums and dads that, want to look after themselves and want to be better than they were, and come together in a nice sort of welcoming environment. So we're a very community-based organisation, and basically that's what the business serves, is a bunch of people who want to come together, get a bit of enjoyment out of their exercise, and enjoy a bit of a social aspect as well.
Well, I know you do that particularly well, and we'll dive into that a little bit more in terms of how you've been able to grow that community. For folks who don't know, because obviously being a global audience, how big is Armidale? How many people live in the town?
So it's sort of sitting at around 25,000 people. Now, of that 25,000 people, we have about 5,000 of them that are quite transient. They're university students, and they're only sort of here about 7 months of the year. And so they come and go, and it's very difficult to pin them down because their degrees all run at different times, and so their 7 months don't coincide. So that 5,000 is scattered across 12 months of the year, and some of them are here in August and others are here in September, and most of them are gone in January when the town is fairly desolate and quiet, where most of the town disappears for a month. But about 25,000 people. So it's not small, but it's also not huge at the same time. Yeah.
And we were, just recently, but also previously as well, been talking about the pros and cons to being in a medium-sized town. I mean, it's a medium-sized town in terms of Australian percentages and sizes anyway, and we'll dive into a little bit of that. So for the folks who don't know you, you started the business, as you said, 10 years ago, or nearly 10 years in October, and at that stage it was really just you sort of travelling around as a one-man band. So tell us a little bit more about where you were before you started with NPE.
Yep. So at that point I was running around as you just said, a one-man band. I had a few marker cones and I had a ute, which any Americans watching would refer to as a pickup truck. So I had a ute and some marker cones, and I'd travel around and train people in their backyards, or we'd train at the local footy ground. And we were sort of outdoors a lot. And Armidale is in what we refer to in Australia as the New England region. So you can imagine our winters aren't a whole lot of fun. And so we saw a huge fluctuation in that early year of, we were training a fair few people sort of through summer. And then I got to winter, and a lot of numbers dropped off. People didn't want to train outdoors in winter, especially with some mornings being minus 5 degrees and stuff like that. And I think that first winter we had our record low in Armidale of minus 11 degrees. That's Celsius, so the guys who were working in Fahrenheit can work that one out. But it was pretty chilly, and that was it set us a task, or set me a task at that time. I was still working part-time at a Globo gym at the time, and it set us a task to say, right, we need to find a facility and we need to find something. And I guess the really cool part of that was, at that time, working in that Globo gym, I actually picked a magazine and there was an advertisement for, want to earn six figures or something like that. It was back in the early days of the old NPE, FFP advertising, and there was a bunch of people that were looking like they were killing life and doing all sorts of great things and standing alongside sports cars and things. And so here was I eating my dinner at sort of 9:30 at night in a Globo gym, and picked up a magazine and saw this advertisement and thought, well, I might look into this, and purchased a very small very small package, which was the Red Book. What was that?
The Red Bible.
The Red Bible, yeah. Purchased that, and that's where we started out. And so over the next sort of 6 months or so there, implemented a few things, and then got to what was then called Mega Training. And, it sort of rocketed off from there. So doing a few campaigns and stuff, and a few charity events and things from there. And so within that first 12 months of doing some work with MPE at the time, we managed to go from that one-man band thing to running a boot camp, to moving into a facility, a small facility that we could afford at the time, and the members, it could accommodate the members that we had. Running a few boot camps and sort of branching out from that personal training into a boot camp sort of model at that time.
Gotcha. And when you were on your own, sort of traveling around and working at the Globo gym, how many clients were you working with at that stage? And, would you mind sharing roughly what your sort of monthly revenue was?
Yeah. So it's pretty easy to remember, actually, because I went over all this the other day. So I think I had about 8 PT clients. You can count them on 2 hands. And had what I thought was a group training group. There was about 4 of them that would turn up out of, that was supposed to be 10 or 11. And we were serving about 12 clients. And in that first year, so this is 2009. So I think we kicked off in October. In that first year, we generated $17,000 in revenue in 12 months, and spent $21,000. So that was year one. There's always an initial outlay in business and that sort of thing. But I was expecting to make more than $17,000. That was sort of a bit eye-opening. That what do we do here? There's not a lot of income. Do I stick it out at the Globo gym? Do I do that sort of stuff and hang in there, or do we let go of the life rope and let go of the mooring rope and push this boat out to sea and let it go and see what happens? And so that's pretty much what we did. We let go and saw what happened, and put a bit of faith in you guys. And the next 12 months we went from, what was it, 17 grand the first year, went from 17 grand to 160 grand. So it was a bit of a jump up, and there was actually a profit there. So that was kind of nice. Yeah.
Well, and super exciting, because I remember those days extremely well, and I remember our initial conversations as well, which were a lot of fun to think back on. You also had a young family at that stage too, because your daughter Georgia was she was still very, very young at that stage, and you'd come from already a corporate background as well. So I imagine coming from that environment where, yes, it's stressful, and that was, knowing your story a little bit, that was part of the reason why you wanted to move into health and fitness. But your income obviously took a big hit coming from that corporate side, and 17,000 a year wasn't going to cut it. Yeah, so
it came from corporate sales and marketing, and came out of that career, and earning a fairly hefty sort of wage. And then jumping down to that and having zero income basically from a business, and actually forking out a heap of savings. There was a bit of a worry, because we had a one-year-old daughter at the time, and sort of what are we going to do? And it was just, I was very thankful that Jodie was still working away as a teacher, and working very hard there. And but then at the same time, there was that thing of just hanging on to that extra little part-time job that I had that was going to provide a little bit of a wage. And but through working out and working with you guys and knowing that, well, as long as I'm serving somebody else, I can't serve my clients. And that was what was happening. So I could see that that the best bet was to have courage and practice faith, and do that, and make sure that I let go of this little bit of money that was there, and sort of started to serve my clients better. Because if I wasn't working for me and working for my clients, I was working for somebody else. And as long as I was working for someone else, and as long as I was doing other stuff, I couldn't put 100% effort into the clients that we had or the clients that we wanted to attract. And so that was a big thing. Like, yeah, well, at one point, it felt quite pressured and quite stressful. At the same time, it sat well with my belief structure, and it sat well with our values of, we were going to do that thing by, having a bit of courage and, practice faith in the system, and then just go at it, sort of thing. So, yeah.
Well, you certainly did that. And I remember our early conversations, there was a little bit of concern and maybe some questioning in there, but once you'd had it explained to you, you're like, right, well, I'm going to give it a go, and we'll see what happens. And clearly in that first year, the success was great. Sort of fast forwarding a little bit to today,
Yep.
Where is the business at now, and facility wise, client numbers wise, and and if you're happy to share the revenue as well from a yearly perspective as well, tell us more about, and also more about sort of you and in the team and those sorts of things.
Yeah. So what happened was, we were in that small facility, as I was mentioning before. So I think it was about 100, we had about 115 square meters, 120 square meters of usable floor space, where we could train and coach people and all that sort of thing. And we were pushing the envelope a bit of fitting them all in. And then, so what happened was we moved about, well, not quite 2 years ago. We moved to where we are, and we doubled our floor space in that time. So we've sort of gone from this smaller facility that was, a little shed in an industrial area, to a much newer facility that was much more suitable for what we actually wanted and what we were after. So that's where we've gone to from there. So at one stage, like that 160 that we did in that first year, it sort of hung there for a bit because I got a little bit too comfortable and, didn't really push myself too much. And we probably, we tried to introduce CrossFit to a market where in a conservative country town where people fear change a little bit. And so this crazy new system of training was just sort of a bit out there for some people. And so then we had a period in about 2013, 14, 15 where things weren't going particularly well, and we almost looked at shutting the doors at one stage. But by implementing a heap of stuff that we'd been taught, and a heap of things that we could work on with my coach at the time, we sort of pulled it out of the mire. And so we dropped down to 140 in revenue one year, I think it was, and that was the final straw for me. I'm like, well, either man up and get on with it and actually get better and grow, or we go out the door backwards, and I wasn't prepared to do that. So we dropped down to 140, but then in the last financial year, last financial year we did 240,000. So in the space of 2.5 years, we turned that around from a backward slide to almost doubling the revenue in that sort of 2-year period. And that was just mostly through implementing a lot of the stuff we learned, like the lessons we learned from you guys. And in particular, fix the driver and and the race car will take care of itself once we got the driver in check. So yeah, it was about growth, knowledge, learning, and then, putting that into practice. And here we are, bigger facility, more members, and, it's new challenges, different challenges.
And we spoke a little bit about that earlier as well, which I'd love to talk about in a moment. So starting sort of way back, a handful of clients, you count them on two hands, as you said, wondering whether actually leaving corporate was a wise decision, to having some initial success and then getting comfortable, which caused a little bit of a backward slide, realizing that working on yourself and your ability to grow the business too, and now you're at 240 last financial year. And what are the client numbers at the moment?
Yeah, we're sitting at about on this morning's numbers, 105 CrossFit members. So we're we've been there for the last sort of few months, between 100 and 110. And so the next goal is to add another 15 into that mix and have us at 120. That's our next target. And yeah, that's sort of where we're sitting. And so we've got enough room to fit in probably another 30 members, I reckon. And then we'd be at capacity in this facility, and then we'd look at sort of growing a little bit more, going somewhere else, or taking the shed next door. Yeah.
Well, what we haven't shared there as well is a couple of things, and I won't dive too much into our past, but both of us at certain stages haven't been optimally healthy, and in fact, not only have you grown the business during that time, but I'd suggest you're as fit as or as strong as you've ever been, and the family now as well. You mentioned Jodie, your wife, earlier, and her continuing to teach back in the day when it was a bit of a challenge there, but she's heavily involved with the business, and like your target market, it's created such an amazing group and community and family, isn't it, where people really are not only turning the clock back on their health and fitness, but they're going to a level they've never been at in their 40s, which is even though they're spending time with kids and the kids are coming along, they're getting inspired. So it's amazing to see your own personal journey in that as well, with your own health and fitness, because as business gets busy, that can often be something that comes last, right?
Yeah, and that was probably the case there early on, like sort of 2012, 2013, where we took on too many people all at once, and I was constantly working and just ran out of time. And so, yeah, I would put my training and my nutrition last and look after everyone else's first. And in the long run, that wasn't the right thing to do. And so when I made a commitment again to, getting myself in check and my family and everything, and, all of us being healthy and looking after ourselves, it flowed on. It's funny, like, people will take their car to a mechanic that's got a crappy car because the mechanic just doesn't work on their own car. But you don't want to go to a personal trainer that is not looking like a personal trainer is allegedly supposed to look. And so, you do have to walk the walk. You've got to actually put the effort in and look after your own training first and foremost, because people see it. And if it's not good enough for you, why is it good enough for them? So that's what it's something that I know there's other CrossFit box owners and pretty well-renowned coaches that people hold in high esteem and that say, like, if you're a coach, you should be doing your own programming, and I'm a believer in that. Yeah, there are PTs and stuff that have their own personal trainers that train them, and that's fine. That works for them. But my ethos is, if you're not looking after yourself and you're not assessing your own strengths and weaknesses and stuff in your training, you can't really encourage your members to do the same. And so that's where I'm coming from with it now. There's days where I don't want to train still, because I've been busy putting everyone else's program together and all that sort of stuff. But then I think, I've got to do it. Just get out there and do something. So, yeah, it's vitally important to fix the driver, but not just physically, but mentally as well. To stretch yourself in your brain, and not so much, not just learn about training and stuff, but learn about, business, learn about what's working for people in a self-development way as well. Read 10 books and you might get one thing out of each one of them. That's fantastic. And that's how I approach it now. Pick up some of the old classics and stuff as well and read them. They aren't old classics. They're old classics for a reason. So pick up a few books and learn them and read them, and that sort of shows as well to your clients and to your clientele and to your market. If you're looking to get better at stuff, they'll see that and they'll follow suit as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, you as you said, you're walking the walk, aren't you? You're challenging yourself, not just physically, but in terms of your own personal, professional development, which is awesome. Speaking about challenges, you've talked about a couple there, getting a bit comfortable, sort of 2012, 2013, and that sort of thing, and obviously having to work on yourself as the driver of the business. What were the biggest challenges? You mentioned those. Were there any other challenges that you faced sort of during that time?
Yeah, so there's those ones. But the biggest thing was letting go of externals. There's stuff in the market, there's stuff out there that you can't control. You're never going to be able to control. It is. But they're outside your control. Really bother yourself with them. Letting go of that was a big what this is going wrong and that's going to town. So letting go of that sort of, and then only have an impact on. So, impact on the target approached. At one stage we had it completely wrong. Town isn't big enough to have a bunch of young competitors. And they were, I had, so right, this is a target market. This is what we're going to do. This is the, and forget all those external factors. They will still occur whether I was probably the biggest challenge, letting go of that stuff, because even though there would be time and that sort of thing, it would still get to you. If only X, Y, Z, and we'd be fine. And it wasn't going to happen. That was the realms of us having any effect on the outcome of that. So we had to work on what we could work. That was our programming, my knowledge, what we could do at the right times with our marketing, with our business management, with our staff management. And so, yeah, that was probably the biggest challenge I faced.
Yeah, and you had some great points there about not, I mean, we talked earlier about comparing to others or following what others are doing. And I love what you said there about sticking to your own, really your core values, I guess, and what you do best and focusing on that rather than trying to be everything to everyone or introduce every newfangled thing that's going on or bright shiny objects as we talk about.
Yeah.
But that's great takeaways. I'm sure everyone's, if you're not taking a bunch of notes, those who are listening, you absolutely should be. That being said, what for those who are sitting either in where you were right back in the day, one foot in working for someone else and thinking, should I cut that mooring line, as you said, and let the ship sail? Or maybe for some of those people who are where you were in 2012, 2013, bit stuck, maybe a bit of a plateau and maybe slightly sliding backwards. What are the biggest lessons you've learned over the last 10 years or nearly 10 years in business now, Jim?
Invest in yourself. That's probably the biggest lesson learned, is investing in myself and having that faith in the fact that, yeah, once I've invested in it and learned it and stuff, I can apply, that knowledge. And so that's probably the biggest lesson I've learned is, invest in yourself. And that's reading books, doing courses, getting to live events that you guys organise. And especially if you're in a bit of an isolated sort of an area, if you're, get to those events. Like, it was one of those things I used to think, I can't really afford to go. And now it's like, I can't afford not to go, So if anyone's ever experienced regional air travel in Australia, it's expensive as hell. However, it's just an expense that I have to make now. And I know that it costs me more to not come and see you guys in Sydney when they have an event down there, when we have an event down there. It costs me more to not go to that than it does to go to it. So investing in self is probably the biggest lesson I've learned. Just make sure that you learn all you can in all aspects of running a business, but also in all aspects of self-development. And then, apply it. That's biggest lesson learned. Is probably the best advice I can give too. Pick up a book, read 5 to 10 pages a day. That's probably the best starting point.
It's great advice, and I know there's a lot of people who benefit from that, and you'll inspire them as well. I remember at one of those events going back a couple of years now, you, your wife Jodie, and myself happened to meet up afterwards and have a lovely dinner. And I know our conversation at times was based around that as well, like how do we continue to improve ourselves and the things that can sometimes get in our own way. And that's sometimes that expectation we put on ourselves and where we think we should be as well, rather than what we can just do right now that's in front of us. So it's been amazing to see your journey over the last, well, certainly, coming up to 10 years now since we've been involved together. And it's fantastic to see not only your development as a business owner and the business itself, but also the inspiration for your family as well. And I know we just talked before about, how much Jodie's embraced the training and love that as well. And now, if you're not the fittest family in Armidale, you're certainly right up there. I know you said there's no athletes, but I think as families go, you guys would be pretty close. So any final words of wisdom, Jim, for those sort of listening and maybe facing some challenges themselves?
Establish your core values and stick to them. They will guide you through whatever you want to do. So once you've set your core values for yourself, not just your business, but for yourself as well, stick to them and then be true to them. You be true to those core values and you'll pull through whatever you need to pull through. When things get tough, they're not going to differ. Your core values are your core values. You'll know exactly what drives you, what motivates you, what gets you out of bed in the morning. And if you stay true to those, you stay true to yourself, that's probably the biggest thing that I could recommend to anyone. Just stay true to who you are, have courage, practice faith, shit works, just do it.
Well, I love it. That's some good words of wisdom there for sure. And you've certainly taken on board all you've learned. Jim, I really appreciate your time. And I know there's a bunch of people who will be so appreciative of you being so honest and sharing, the challenges as well as the good bits too. And congratulations on what you've achieved with Armidale CrossFit, and not just for yourself, but for your family as well. You're an awesome role model, not just to Georgia, you're a gorgeous girl, but to the whole community. So well done.
No worries. Thanks, Rick.
All right, take care, folks. I'll speak to you all soon.